Welcome on to the Accent Training Podcast, Sowmya. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great and happy and excited for this conversation with you.
Yeah, same. And tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and, just what you do.
So my name is Sowmya Vemuri. I work in tech and I'm also an aspiring actor. My journey with accent training started a while ago, but nothing super serious or as committed to what I did with Patrick. But the motivation for me really started when I decided to produce my own play, and I was one of the lead cast, and I'm putting my money into it, so I wanted to make sure I get the most out of it. And one of the most important things is obviously being understood. And there's a lot of, I guess, like variables in being understood, like your pitch and carrying the emotion as an actor. But accent is also a big part of it when the play is in the US.
So looking back at where it started, what were some of the hesitations that you might have had before kind of starting accent training, if there was anything?
I mean, there were definitely a lot of times of second guessing and fear. I think the biggest one was being afraid that I would sound fake or forced when I'm trying to learn. That was the biggest one. And the second one, I would say, not as strong as the first one, but there was a certain voice in my head that would tell me, well, you're a different person and you're trying to fit into this different I guess, like, environment. Are you sure you want to do this? Right. So there was one voice in my head that was like yelling at me about, oh, you're going to fail, or it's going to be fake or forced. And there's another voice which is like, do you even want to do this? So those were sort of like the two things that were, like, I would say, predominantly the reason why I didn't pursue it until I did. Those are the things.
What made you pull the trigger there, like to actually start pursuing it?
Definitely the play, right? Because it was a long play. It was something that I was excited about, but it had a lot of language which needed to be said a certain way, right? It can't be said in an Indian accent. It would just lose the essence. That was the biggest motivation to, like, really power through the fear of failure and the limiting beliefs for me. But I think if I think about like a specific moment, there was one conversation with my husband where we were driving to a national park, and I don't remember what the sentence was, but I said a sentence in the perfect American accent, and he turned his head and then he said, wow, that was really good. So I think that moment of just like trying trial and error and getting one small feedback, which was positive, was super reinforcing. I was like, well, I could do this again if I did it once. I think that was the moment where I definitely gained confidence that I could do it. And the play was obviously the biggest, I guess, like, driver of me doing this.
So the play, that was the biggest thing. And then, like, that got your mind on the track of like, okay, maybe I've got to do something here.
Yep.
And then your husband telling you you've done it a little, just with one line, one thought that you communicated, that kind of pushed you along into, hey, so there's something to this. Like it maybe it won't sound so fake. Just back at that, time, like, how would you describe how your accent skills were at that time? Like, I don't know, did you have any challenges as an actor at that time, or was it just doubts? Like, where were things back then for you?
I think before we started training, I was studying Meissner technique, which is a very serious form of acting. And there is a specific class in Meissner, which is called impediments, where you basically do accents, and you also do certain, like, out of the body experiences, like being drunk, playing as somebody who has a health condition and things like that. An accent was an impediment. And I remember that class where I think I wanted to try a Southern American accent. And I remember doing that. I remember everybody laughing at me. And that class and that moment was definitely where I was like, oh man, this is super hard and this is not as easy as I thought. And that's where I was, right? I always calibrate to where I am today, to that point in class where I almost made everybody laugh because of
Oh,
how,
yeah.
I guess, like exaggerated and fake it was. So I would say it wasn't like an American accent. It was like very forced, very fake in that specific class. And outside of the class, I would never really care. I would just be like, well, I'm talking. And it had a lot of Telugu. My first language is Telugu. So there's a lot of Telugu intonation and in the sentences and also in the words themselves, right? So it was very different than where I guess I am right now.
Wow. So like, because I think it was like 34 weeks, like
Yep.
spanned over from like September till June, roughly, of dedicated training. That was a lot. So, like, how would you describe your difference in the acting situation now? Do you think you could pull off a Southern American sound?
Well,
If you want?
I have a lot of confidence I can if I put my mind to it. Um, I think it's been very rewarding for me to go through this journey because it's something new, right? Like I've never tried to learn a new language or an accent in a way where I'm able to crack it open, even if it's just a tiny bit. I think what really helped me was the way you teach matches the way I learn. So there was that synergy. I'm an engineer, so I love getting into the details and, going at like almost like a crazy depth or a nuance to understand what is the intonation, but how am I sounding? What is the twang here? Is there a twang here? And things like that. So I feel like with the training itself, I guess like knowing that our styles match made it a lot more easy for me to like stick with it for 34, 35 weeks. I'll give you an example. In one of my previous I guess like accent training lessons with a different teacher, I'm not going to name names, but um I would hear the word dance and very differently, like when I would watch TV shows, and like I'm pronouncing it as dance, and but I'm hearing it differently, right? So the feedback I would get is, well, you have to just stretch the sound, and that's about it, and you're doing it okay. But it never really landed for me. And when we did the same sound, you were able to say, hey, there is a twang here, there is a different way to pronounce it, dance. And that's when it's like, that's what I mean by detail oriented, right? It's not just like surface level, oh, this is how you talk, or this is the emotion, or like it's not superficial. It's like very detailed, where you look at how do you pronounce a sentence, where are you going to put the emphasis on, and then within the sentence, what are the words and where do you put the emphasis on different words, and is there a twang sound? Are you pronouncing every single alphabet in that word? So you're very detailed like that, and studying with you was very helpful for me because I'm also very detail oriented. So that's what I mean when I say your teaching style and my learning style match.
So I really appreciate that you say that. I'm detail oriented. I try not to give vague answers like,
Yep.
you need to make your voice, you need to put your voice lower. Because that's what some people say. You need to put your voice lower, which is correct. But it's
Yeah.
like, how is that done?
Yep.
Like, what does it mean to change your resonance? And Yeah, it's so cool to hear you, say that connected with you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, if you're actually are serious about learning something that is as intricate as an accent, there is really no other way other than really learning all the nuances. So there's definitely fields where you can just like learn surface level and be okay. But this one in particular definitely needs a lot more diligence, both from the teacher and from the learner. So it's a two-way street.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, just, considering all the improvement that you saw, have you felt any difference, like in just kind of how you perceive yourself as an English speaker, or how other people perceive you as an English speaker?
I don't think it's the perception that changed, but it's just like going into conversations with little preparation than I used to before. So there is a little bit of time saving where I don't need to like, I remember very early on in my career, I would write every sentence I wanted to speak in a meeting. I don't do that anymore, right? Because when there's confidence in myself, and learning an accent is a big part of that. So I would say that was the biggest benefit. The one thing I'll say though, in the acting world, it was there's a big difference, right? Like, so I do a lot of self tapes, and in self tapes, you basically record yourself, and then you watch yourself, and you're like, that's not. I said the word wrong, or that's sounding, forced. So after we did the training, the number of times I need to do a retake because I said a word wrong has reduced drastically, right? So in that sense, in the acting world, I would say way more confident, and it takes less time for me to get to a certain sweet spot where I'm confident in sending that self tape. And then I think when it comes to perception, when there's like live auditions, right? Like when you're theater auditions, you go in and you do your monologue. In that specific, I guess, like area, I definitely saw a difference in how people view me. Um, in I guess to answer your question on others people's perception of me, I would say it's basically like, oh yeah, she can pull off an American accent, or there's no doubts that she's gonna stand out, or it's not gonna go with the overall theme of the play, which is very much American. So I would say that's the way I think about these things.
I love what you mentioned about recording those little tapes. I mean, I record obviously a lot as well, and I know how frustrating it is, even with English as my first language, when I have to, I'm like, I don't like the intonation I used there, or I said
Yeah,
this word weird, or it's like, and I'll do for like a 30-second clip, it could take hours sometimes
yeah,
to come up with,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one is very painful to go through that experience. You do all the preparation, you have the best lighting, best camera, and then you're saying these words, and you do like 10 takes, and you find two amazing takes, but there's like two different words that were mispronounced, right? And you're like, oh man, I need to do this all over again. But so I would say that in the acting and self-tape world, it's a big improvement.
So, like, in your opinion, then, what's the biggest misconception that people might have about accent training? Like, would you say, because you mentioned how you thought it would sound forced, and then you tried forcing it, and you were like, okay, that it can't be worse than that. Um, what did you feel, is like, I don't know, something that you didn't expect, or a misconception people probably have that you feel like it's really not so bad?
Yeah, I would say it's that, I guess, like a almost like a feeling of what would others think of me, right? When I'm doing an accent and I'm not fully there. There's like I can give you an example of my own sister mocking me. She's like, "Oh, you're stop with the accent," or "Oh my God!" Like she would have very vocal responses and criticisms, which was very hard at that point of time. But when I look back, it's just funny, it's really funny and nothing more. So I think downplaying how much of, I guess, like an annoyance you will be to others would really help. Like it's almost like, well, at the end of the day, after, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, I'm going to be better understood. And is it worth it? I would say hell yeah, right? You don't need to repeat your order come multiple times in a restaurant, or you don't need to be like, oh, I am from a different part of the world here, right? Obviously, like, I'm very proud of my identity and where I'm from, but there's something about like assimilation that makes it like fun, right? Like it's fun, and accent is a big part of it. So I would say, put the criticisms aside, and they're really like silly when you think about it retrospectively. Don't let that hold you back, and just power through those, starting couple of months where it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, because it's worth it. It's not rocket science. I thought it was rocket science when I started. I'm like, oh my God, there's like so much I need to remember. But really, repetition is key, and once it becomes part of you, it's just there.
It's like training your muscles,
Yep.
and your muscles do eventually learn, so you don't have to memorize it like every
Exactly.
movement
Yep.
that you might have.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And I what you mentioned there about like, is this going to annoy people? Or I've heard other people say like, are people going to think I'm sounding like I'm mocking them or something like that?
Yeah.
And like, I even actually, one student of mine who's a Hindi speaker, when I taught him about that American twang, like the an sound, he mentioned that he and his brother used to, when they were kids, they would like mimic an American accent, and they'd be like, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. And I was like, you were accent training. Like, that was actually good.
Spot on. Yeah.
Because if he uses that speaking with Americans, or well, this guy lives in Canada, so with Canadians, we don't even hear it. Like it doesn't even register to us. It just sounds like what everybody else is doing. And it's like if I were to be speaking with an Indian person, and if I were to move my head like this, right? If in agreement or in an appropriate way, they wouldn't even notice it. Like it wouldn't even occur to them. But if I were to do that to a Canadian, it would stand out. So I'm just saying it stands out to you when it's, something that's a little bit foreign to you.
Yeah.
But to the people who use it, like you said, they aren't even asking, where are you from?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't even occur to them that you're trying, you're shadowing or mirroring or mimicking them.
Yep.
That's so cool. So, I mean, if you were to maybe give some advice to somebody who's kind of on the fence, and, what would that piece of advice be to someone who thinks, I like the idea, but I don't know, maybe it's not for me, or maybe they feel it is for them, but they're worried of what others might think.
Yeah. I think, first of all, what really helped me was like a goal, right? Like why I like clarity on that goal. Why am I doing this? I think when you are able to articulate that to yourself, a lot of the, I guess, like the fear and troubles, they sort of like clear up, right? They're no longer like still weighing you down or your decision down. So that's the number one thing. The second thing I would say is, like, for me, I went through my own journey of like, why am I doing this? What are the benefits? And there's a lot of learning along the journey. One of the things that I now realize is that accent, it helps with almost like you're speaking to be understood and not just heard, right? Like we all are part of like so many conversations at work or in acting or in friend circle, everyone's talking. There's a distinction where some of us speak and like people don't register or they don't respond, but then the experience is different for another set of people, right? So accent, I think, is a big part of being understood in the environment you're in. So if you really think about it, it's just being understood. Like it's like, communicating, it's basic, right? It's not really, you don't need a overarching goal like, oh, I'm doing this play or anything else. It can be as simple as I just want to be understood. So like really, I guess like having good clarity on the goal helps. And then when you start the training itself, there was a lot of things I did. Like you can see all the sticky notes at the back. Those are all the words that I had trouble pronouncing, and you helped me with, right? So in addition to just being consistent, like if you surround yourself in your environment, like your office or your phone, your notes app in the phone, with accent training, like tidbits here and there, it goes a long way in like giving you that confidence. Every time you say that word and it's literally on your desk, you're going to say it the way it's supposed to be said, right? And then after a point, you just don't even need to look at it. You'll remember, your brain will remember. So those are, I guess, like my two tidbits, which is like have good clarity on the goal. The second one is, if you're going to go through this journey, be consistent and surround your environment with the goal and with really like all the tidbits that you're learning in the accent training class.
And in like you sticky notes, very affordable for anybody. Yep. That like, and they sell them everywhere. That yeah, that's a good point. Your phone, computer, your GPS, in your car, like put it all on English, listening and repeating and keeping those reminders around you. That is so cool. So you really immersed yourself here. That is awesome.
It's also a lot of fun after a certain point. For example, I think like I would drive to work every day, and it was sometimes 40-minute drives, and I had nothing else to do. So I would just put on your podcast. I would listen to what you're saying and literally repeat everything. And it's funny when I think about it, but like there are certain words that are just like, that are so natural to me, but they were not at that point of time, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to make your like overall journey itself like fun, and it doesn't have to be this intimidating training where someone's giving you feedback all the time and you're trying to work it. You can make it fun.
So you would say, even on the way to work, you can kind of turn your car into your own accent training gym, sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. Well put.
Oh, I love that. That is awesome. Well, yeah, these were some of the main things I was really looking to discuss today, just to kind of pick your brain a little and see what has given you these, some big results, some big boosts here. And I'm curious now, just to wrap things up on, like, ever since ending your training, because it's been about 4 weeks or so since we've had our final class, what do you do these days to keep up with things? Because clearly you're still staying sharp. Like, I'm hearing things pretty good. So, yeah, what keeps you moving these days?
I mean, like, you just like sent a lot of the recordings of our class my way, so I have like an incredible repository of all the teachings, right? So I make it a point to listen to them every once in a while. I definitely listen to your podcast, and I'm subscribed to your Instagram, where anytime you post a new reel, I definitely like get my eyes on it. So I would say it's like really continuing the training in an offline manner. And then I would say like there's definitely some sounds that like we drilled so many times that it's just in my head, right? Like there are certain words or sounds I don't need to practice. They're just like they're there, right? I don't need to worry about them. But there's certain words or like phrases that I need to keep, still keep training on. So I listen to your podcast, I listen to our recordings every once in a while. And anytime I hear a word in a TV series and I'm not able to say it the same way, I go to Youglish, which is a website you shared. I try to crack it down and be like, oh, that's what it is. And 9 out of 10 times, it's part of one of your teachings. So I would say, like I said, like the detailed oriented nature of our training really helps me continue where we left off. And it really has, worked for me.
That's so cool because, yeah, no, the whole point of it is that you're not depending on me forever, right? Because then I wouldn't really be serving anybody if you're just like constantly needing to come back for more. Like, that's why people don't trust dentists, right? Because they're 9 out of 10 tell you to use this toothpaste, but you're still getting cavities. What's that other one? Anyway, I've tried teaching people, 5 days a week. I've tried doing an hour a day, like super intensive classes. And at the end of 3, 4, even 7 months of training, they just can't, like, they're not able to start moving forward on their own. And that's why we take things on strategically with one training session plus one accountability session to make sure you're keeping up with it and review anything that, may not have been clear the first time. So that's so cool to hear that, that was enough for after those 34 weeks, you were able to kind of take the reins on your own. And it's really cool to hear that. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I've invested $0 in this since we ended up training, right? So it's been wonderful. And I would say the big part of I guess whenever you learn a new skill, the biggest thing is consistency, right? You have to be consistent. And there were definitely times in our training or time together where I had a work thing or a personal thing, and I would show up to class and I'm not there. Like, I'm not my 100%. Like, I had only 20% to give, but I still showed up and I gave the 100% of that 20% I had that day. So my biggest, I guess, thing is, if you're really consistent, and even if you're having a bad day, just keep at it. It all compounds, and I've seen the results of it compounding to a point where even when I'm not, spending as much time on this as I did when we were training together, it's still there, right? Like, it's an investment that's going to stay with you. It's not like, only when you pay, you're going to get it. It's really, if you're serious about it, you can make the most out of it. I would say if you're serious about it, it's not a hard thing. If you're consistent, it's not a hard thing to learn. It's only hard if you're not serious and you're not consistent. If you think it's going to come to you, it's super hard. It's not one of those things that will come to you. But if you put the time and you're consistent, you're going to get it. Anybody can get it, because I can speak from experience. I'm sort of a nobody in accent and I got it. And if you put the time, you can get it too.